I'm settled in my seat. I'm very relaxed, very relaxed. And the first thought that passed through my mind was to familiarize myself with surroundings. And I glanced across the aisle, and I noticed that the lady occupying the seat there had her baby with her. Ugly baby. Bad-looking baby. Now, generally, I'd hesitate about passing an opinion about somebody's kid, but this was, even if I don't say it, it's an ugly baby. I only took one quick look, like that, and I saw in from the front of the coach comes this guy. The guy's, he's had a few. And as he approached the section where the woman was with the baby, he stops, and he's staring, like that. And the woman's watching him. She's watching him from the corner of her eyes. She says to him, "What are you looking at?" The guy says, "I'm looking at that ugly baby." That's a bad-looking baby, lady. Save a lot of money with that baby. You don't have to hire any babysitter. Nobody's going to bother that kid. The lady gets offended. She gets offended. Does that make sense? As he pulls the emergency cord, the train stops. There's a big scene in there. Everybody's crowding around there. And you know the guy who goes through the train selling those 25-cent sandwiches for $1.50. He comes in, big scene, the conductor comes in, the conductor says, "What's going on here? What's going on here?" And the lady said, "This fellow just insulted me. And I don't have to spend my money to ride this railroad and be insulted." The conductor said, "Now calm down, lady." He said, "Madam, the Pennsylvania Railroad will go to any length to avoid having differences between the passengers. He said, perhaps it would be more to your convenience if we were to rearrange your seating. And as a small compensation from the railroad, if you will accompany me to the dining car, we'll give you a free meal. Maybe we'll find a banana for your monkey."
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. We made it to another one, another Friday, if you will. It is Friday Funnies. This Black History Month, we're actually going to be looking at some comedians, some comedic actors, and some non-comedic actors. But I'm going to give you a little bit of history. Not just give you a little bit of history, just I like to engage and fill in some spots for people. The comedian you just saw is none other than Flip Wilson, who has historical significance in terms of entertainment for African American comedians, actresses. If you see guys out here that have their own show, like the Cosby Show, like Red Fox Show, all these shows, a lot of them owe a debt of gratitude to Mr. Flip Wilson. But before we get in there, let me welcome everybody to the show. And again, happy Friday. Jumu Mubarak to everybody who made it to the masjid, at least got to sit in front of the TV and get that Friday water, if you will. I want to just welcome everybody. If it's your first time, you came at a perfect time. Friday Funnies is a perfect opportunity for you to get acclimated to what we do on the show. Like, we have our funnies, but I like to give a little education behind the funny too. Behind me, you see my comedy teacher over here, Mr. Dick Gregory, and Young Warrior on the other side, Mr. Dave Chappelle. That picture is courtesy of the side of Ben's Chili Bowl in Washington, D.C. If you actually saw me with another background that had Billie Holiday and also Burt Parker, that was also not on the side of Ben's Chili Bowl, but on the side of the Lincoln Theater, a very, very important landmark in terms of African American history and the arts in Washington, D.C., right across the street from Howard Theater. So aside from that, like I said, if you're coming on the show for the first time, simple rules. I'm going to wrap them up. I'm going to mend them. In the words of one of my mentors, you got to follow the 3 B's. Be brief, brother. Listen, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate you stopping through. Number two is don't act like you're shy. Get in that comment section. Let us know who you are. Say hello. Give us a kind word. Get some kind words back. That's also something I want to express. And number three, you're part of the ShOUT Show family. So don't act strange. You're part of an eclectic group of people. I'm the host, Preacher Moss. This is the platform, but this is everybody's show. Okay? I'm glad I got that out of the way. So, for my people, they're already lining up. Alhamdulillah. I like to go through and I give shout outs every day. You know why I give shout outs? You know why? Because it's important to recognize people in their essence. Does that make sense? It's important to recognize people in their essence. Like when you see comedians, you don't necessarily see them in their essence. You see them on a platform, but you don't really necessarily see them in their essence. I have to say, with ShOUT Show, just because I know people in the show and we have visitors that come on, we have guests sporadically, it's good to know that you're catching people in their essence. You're watching the show from your house. It doesn't get much more natural than that. So let me give the shout outs right up front. Big holler to our consultant producer, Sultana Whitfield. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Sultana. I wanted to talk to you about this show, but I was like, no, I'm going to throw it out. This is probably going to be one of the best shows I've had in a while. Talking about comedy, recently I had to write a thesis. My thesis was called Allah Made Me Funny, and it talked about the intersectionality between religion, race, and relevance. And a lot of you guys know the story of Allah Made Me Funny, that under the auspices of Imam Warfdi Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him, he inspired me to use comedy to pull our community together. Our community was fractured, in many regards still is fractured, because we have our indigenous Muslims, African American Muslims mostly, we have our immigrant brothers and sisters that came over in the 60s, and through a whole conflation of things, of hit and misses, we're just not united like we should be. When I say united like it should be, I mean, in terms of like a Muslim multi-democratic front that we can say, hey, listen, we stand on these values, but we don't, unfortunately. A lot of times we get picked off and got to do this, do that, and 9/11 has helped. But it was the idea that he told me that the comedy was a teaching tool. That in this regards, do comedy to understand that deep down inside you're doing religious work. You're doing religious work. You're taking the humor to places where normal religious work wouldn't work, and you're teaching. You're teaching doing stand-up. And he didn't tell me, but I learned, is that while I'm teaching during stand-up to my brothers and sisters, I'm learning through their reaction in this platform called comedy. So you just got a clip of Flip Wilson. I have another clip I'm going to show you, but I want to give you some background about that clip about Flip Wilson. That was one of the most important clips of stand-up that you're ever going to see. This is why. Flip Wilson was on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Now, Johnny Carson back in the 60s and the 70s, he could make or break a comedian. If you were really, really funny, you killed it, and he invited you to sit on that sofa, you were a made man. It was like Mafia, you are a made man. And that was a big thing. Even myself, back in the day, I used to watch Johnny Carson or Jay Leno, and I used to think, maybe one day, man, I'm going to get a shot to be on that show, and I'm going to do it. And Leno was going to invite me to sit on the couch. Well, it didn't happen. It won't happen because they have a show anymore. But I hold that hope. Somebody's going to put me on that show one day, inshallah, and I'll shine, and then the rest of us will shine. Because you know what? As much as I do as a comedian, I love this community, and I love to see us win. Not me win, but I like to see us win. Like when I do jokes, I talk about families, I talk about stuff, and that is the beauty of stand-up. But in this particular situation, a lot of people were rooting for my main man, Flip Wilson. This is why. Flip Wilson was one of those comedians who had actually gotten up to a point whereby, you know what? He was going to break. He was out of that line of comedians that came out of Red Fox Comedy Club in L.A. And he was different. I wouldn't say that he was a strong stand-up. I'm showing you his strongest pieces. I wouldn't say he was a strong stand-up, but conceptually, he was one of the best out there. This is the beginning of strong concept comedians who could give you scenarios. The storytelling was a certain way, and it opened up. Okay? So as I'm saying that, let me introduce Sister Sultana Ali from New Jersey. I hope that snow has got up out of there and you guys are moving around, inshallah, sister. And my sister gave me the rest. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much. All talk for Rashid. What's going on, brother? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Juma Mubarak to all of you. Thank you so much for coming. And my sister, Miss Ree Chase. Ree and Derek, I hope you guys are doing well and recuperating from getting back from Michigan. Alhamdulillah. But let's get to the crux of the show. Because I feel like we are consumers of comedy. Like, we go see comedians, and sometimes we just don't know the background of where particularly black comedy comes from. Like, I don't want to be critical about a lot of comedy these days. Everybody has their style. But there was a time, brothers and sisters, where comedy reflected the struggle. It reflected the relevance and the thought process and the dreams and aspirations of black people. And I'm going to show you a clip that's extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. Oh, let me give a shout out to Miss Eleanor. How you doing, Miss Eleanor? Happy Friday to you, my sister. All right. I'm going to take care and make sure you're doing good. Oh, y'all are hanging out today. My mom and Miss Eleanor are hanging out today. God bless. I got something for you and my mom, Miss Eleanor, so I don't want you to go anywhere. But I was talking about how the comedy, when I was coming up, reflected the liberation movement. It reflected the aspirations of black people. I see comedians now, and no knock, but I'm like, what's your goal? What's important to you? What's your goal? The people I have behind me are interesting. Mr. Gregory over here is my comedy teacher. And over to the side over here, Dave Chappelle is my comedy brother, my comedy peer. And what's interesting between the three of us is we understand what's at stake. There are other comedians that do as well, but it's always been great to be in their company because when we talk about stand-up and things, when we get down to the nuts and bolts of it, we've always known what was at stake. Meaning that things that came out of our mouth had to be responsible. We had to have accountability for what we said. We just couldn't throw it out. Mr. Gregory saved my comedy career. You've heard me talk about this. When I was 23 years old, I thought about quitting. And he told me, you can't quit. He said, you haven't been hurt enough to quit yet. And I thought about it, and he told me, I never forget. I said, well, I'm a Muslim and I bombed. He said, you think you're the only Muslim died on stage? I said, yeah. He said, you never heard of Malcolm X? I said, damn. But my point is, even Mr. Gregory gave me a certain level of, I want to say grounding that I'll never forget. And I'm going to get to it as well. I want to show you guys another clip of Flip Wilson. But before I get to that, this particular clip that I just showed you before, Ugly Baby, it's probably one of the best stand-up night clips you're ever going to see. Well-timed, paced. You're not going to beat it. I'm a professional. It's hard to beat what he just did. What was important was because that episode went over so well, brothers and sisters, and the background is Flip Wilson had been bumped a record 7 times. Imagine going to do a show and you get bumped 7 times. He never complained. And when he got his shot, he made the most of it. And when I say the most of it, this is what I mean. It led him on a path where he would eventually have his own show in his own name. It was called the Flip Wilson Show. And not only was the Flip Wilson Show a landmark in terms of a black comedian having his own show in his own name, but here's the killer, brothers and sisters. Before Sanford and Son, before the Cosby Show, what was more important about Flip Wilson having the Flip Wilson Show, wait for it, he owned his show. When he died, he owned all the masters for the Flip Wilson Show, and he sold them to TV Land, which is a whole nother story. But it's the fact that he had the foresight to own this stuff. And I personally believe the reason he was able to do it, I'm going to throw this out here. I believe personally the reason he was able to do it because he had these concepts that were ruminating around in his mind. And he was able to put these things out in a way that a lot of comedians weren't able to. I mean, they could kind of, but they couldn't. The only person that at that point, I will say at this early point, that could kind of hang with Flip Wilson was actually Richard Pryor. And Richard Pryor was from a different space. Flip Wilson was in service, and these guys come up under Red Fox. Red Fox had a comedy club, in South Central LA, and all the comedians used to come and work out their material. And Flip Wilson was one of them. Like I said, to me, he wasn't technically the tightest comedian, but he didn't have to be because he was an excellent storyteller. So I'm going to show you guys the next clip, and this is Flip Wilson breaking out a character. This is a famous clip, an extremely famous clip. But this is Flip Wilson breaking out a character here we go, during his live stand-up set on the Ed Sullivan Show. It is a jaw dropper. Okay, you guys ready? All right, hold on a minute. So we say take notes in our business, so please take notes.
She came in the house, she had the box, Rev saw it. She came in the house, she had the box, Rev saw it. Rev said, what, another dress? So this is ridiculous. 3 dresses in a week, another dress? And she tells him, I didn't want to buy this dress. The devil made me buy this dress. She said, I was going down the street, I was minding my own business, singing to myself. I said, what you said, honey? And the devil started following me, telling me how good I look. Rev said, I'm not going for that. He said, because every time you do something wrong, you blame it on the devil. So you blamed it on the devil when you ran the car into the side of the church. She tells him, it was the devil. You wasn't there. How do you know? Said he grabbed that steering wheel out of my hand. Rev said, well, why didn't you step on the brake? She tells him, because when he grabbed the steering wheel, I tried to kick him. I can't kick him and step on the brake at the same time. Said we had a big fight. That's why I was in the back seat when y'all got the call. Rev said, well, how the devil get you? Rev said, well, how the devil get you to buy the dress? She said, I was going down the street, I was singing, what you say on me every day. And I heard the devil coming up behind me with tiptoeing, and I said to myself, I'm not going to look back because I know it's the devil. And then he sneaked up and leaned over my shoulder and said, say, Mama, look at that dress in the window there. Said, it's on sale, so that's your size, too. Got a lot of flowers. You know you like a lot of flowers. Why don't you treat yourself to that dress? I said, cut that out, devil. I ain't buying no dresses. You better leave me alone, honey. The devil said, well, why don't you try it on? You can try it on. Rev will never know about you trying it on. It's free. They're not going to charge you nothing to try it on. You owe yourself a try on. I said, I'm not even trying it on, devil. I'm not even going to go in there and look at it. That's when the devil shoved me in the door. He said, the devil shoved me in the door. I said, cut that out, devil. And he pushed me over to where the dress was. And he threatened me. And made me try it on. Then he pulled a gun. And made me sign your name to a check. Rev said, how come the devil's always making you do something for yourself? When's the devil gonna do me a favor? She said, I asked him about that. He said he did already. Devil said if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't even have a job.
Now, that character that he introduced was the infamous and famous Geraldine character that would basically, I want to say, cement early on his history, his place in terms of stand-up comedy. His show, The Flip Wilson Show, was a proving ground for people like Red Fox, who would eventually get his own show. Of course, he got Sanford and Son, things like that. But the thing that was interesting was that his process was inclusive of bringing along a lot of African-American comedians who may not have gotten their shot on the Johnny Carson Show, may not have gotten their shot on Ed Sullivan, but they got their shot on the Red Fox Show. On the Flip Wilson Show. And here's an interesting thing. He's one of the few comedians at this point in time that's giving multiple voice. He's giving multiple voice. What I mean by multiple voice, he plays 3 characters. He plays the Reverend, he plays Geraldine, and he plays the devil. Reverend, Geraldine, and the devil. In those spaces, brothers and sisters, I'm amazed because he is doing literally script writing. He's introducing the idea of multiple voices in script writing. And I would like to say, through his example, also the examples of some earlier folks. I didn't want to bring up the stuff for Amos and Andy because that involves a much more in depth show. But he was the one that brought black writers into the room and started developing them. And what was beautiful is that, we now see black writers, black showrunners, and stuff like that. But the idea that he owned the show allowed him to bring in people that reflected our culture. And I think that's something that you should really, 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 really appreciate moving forward. Now, I do have something I want to show you, all of you. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen this before. We talk about the greats of comedy. We talk about the Chappelles. We talk about the Dick Gregory's. We talk about the Chappelles. We talk about Moms Mabley, Red Fox, Richard Pryor, Dick Gregory. We talk about all of these greats. But there's one great we never really talk about who made enormous sacrifices for everybody, yourself included. His name's Burt Williams. And if you never heard of Burt Williams, I'm going to say something. It's not your fault. Burt Williams was from another time and another space. I never saw Burt Williams perform live. None of you did. And if you did, you're pretty much lying. You might have seen some stuff on YouTube, but Burt Williams is the first quintessential big-time comedian. Now, before I show this clip, I want you to know that Burt Williams suffered. He suffered. He literally worked himself to death because he was a guy that wanted to make sure that black excellence in art was something that was respected, not ridiculed. It was made mainstream, not put in a niche. And the amazing thing about Burt Williams is that he did it during the time of the minstrels, during the time of blackface. Now, a lot of people say, oh my gosh, blackface, blackface. I was like, no. There was a time where this man, in the middle of the whole aspect of minstrel, he rose to the top. He rose to the top. And he was one of the first and few who learned to bring dignity even in blackface. Everybody knows he's a West Indian man. He was very light complected, but he had to cork up. Cork up means that's when you put the blackface on. But his ability to command an audience and his ability later on to command a viewer watching him on film is one of the most beautiful things I've seen. Now, of note, when I show this, it's about a 2-minute clip. And I don't want anybody to walk away from their computer. Stay. Trust me, stay, because this is history. This is so much beyond laughs. This is so much beyond jokes. This is a man who found dignity in the worst times. He wasn't a coon or anything like that. There was no shucking and driving. There was no, Lincoln Perry, step and fetch it. There was none of that. There's a certain majesty to what I'm going to show you about this man, Burt Williams. And more importantly, off stage, Burt Williams, he was an outlier. Burt Williams saw the importance and the jewel of black life presented properly while he was a minstrel. And he took art to a whole nother level. And I feel like he did that because he could see where it was going. He didn't know the names. He didn't know of Dave Chappelle or Dick Gregory or Richard Pryor or even Preacher Moss. He knew that the thing that was going to drive us was at the core of everything we did. We understood there had to be purpose, and we had to do it with dignity. So without further ado, I'm going to show you one of the most famous clips. Because this is the early 1900s, brothers and sisters. You ain't going to find much on YouTube. The fact that I found this is a buttercup from a lesser upon Allah, because there's a movie, it's only 28 minutes long. I can't show it to you, but the idea that he's conceptually in a movie. Let me say this. He's conceptually in a movie, brothers and sisters, in the early 1900s, and it's not a black production, it's a white production. And he holds his own as a character. Not a minor character, not a degrading character, but a character. They call this the poker game piece. So let me show it to you. Let me know what you think. Okay? Poker Pantheon. Let me also tell everybody, so do not adjust your volume. This is from a silent film. So do not adjust your volume. This is from a silent film. Okay? Cool. Okay, so we're back. Wow. One of the best to ever do it, brothers and sisters. I really, yeah, I really get emotional watching that clip. And the reason is he has no reason, literally no reason, to worry about any of the comedians that are coming after him. None of the artists, none of the actors, none of the writers. He took one of the most oppressive situations and he made it look beautiful. Let me tell you what I mean. They didn't have black acting schools back then at the turn of the century. They didn't have black acting schools or drama or ensembles. Where does he learn that? Where does he learn to frame the environment to make it look like a poker game with 3 or 4 people and simulate the idea that he lost a poker game or hand of poker? And just the genius, brothers and sisters, of space, perception, scene. The guy's a genius. all of us, sometimes forget. We take it for granted. In that silence, you really had to concentrate. In that silence, you really had to understand that you were watching a master. With comedy these days, there's laughter and there's prompts and things like that, and we have microphones. He had no microphone. No microphone. He had really no good lighting. That's when you had to do most of your shooting out during the day. And there was no sound. But what he did was he took us to a space where, I don't know about you, but I can say for myself, he took us to a place where I really, really began to appreciate him. And in watching that, brothers and sisters, I didn't see a minstrel. I saw a great actor, an amazing actor who made me laugh. But he made me smile and he made me appreciative. Don't get me wrong, I love everybody. I love Red Fox and Richard Pryor and Cosby. I love all of them. But they couldn't do that. They couldn't do that. And I'll give some of them credit. When they talked about the great comedians, the Red Foxes and the Richard Pryors, Bill Cosby, they talked about this man, Burt Williams. And I showed you a bit of a timeline between Burt Williams and Flip Wilson. But it was a Burt Williams that set up the idea that black people should have their own productions, their own scripts, writers, theater people, promotion. It was that guy that got the whole ball rolling. So, listen, I'm not going to hold you guys. I know it's Friday, and we'll be back funnier. But I felt like today, I thought, you know what, I share a little information with you. I hope you don't mind. I had jokes written, but when I watched Burt Williams, I watched that piece like, 4, 5, or 6 times just today. And like I said, I get choked up because, one, he's working for us. 2, I see the amount of dignity that this man is bringing to blackface, brothers and sisters. He's bringing it to blackface with no sound. 3, I get sad because we don't know him. Burt Williams is buried way, way down. It's like, but you have to be willing to dig out and find out where that comedy comes from. And 4, he doesn't get his due. So today, while I talked about Flip Wilson, that was the great granddad of comedy for all of us. And if you get a chance, look up Burt Williams. Look up Burt Williams. He was an amazing character. He died way too young. He literally worked himself to death for equality for black entertainers. All right, brothers and sisters, we can get ready to get out of here. But before I do, remember that if you need some financial advice, financial services, make sure you check out www.befinanciallyindependent.com. Again, that's www.befinanciallyindependent.com. Our sponsor for today. And if you don't want to call, I don't want to go to the internet, you want to go old school, pick up the phone and call 1-800-679-3175. Again, that's 1-800-679-3175. And you can talk to the lady herself, Harriet Tubman, a financial advisor trying to lead people out of slavery of debt, Miss Attorney Maxine B. Cade. So, again, brothers and sisters, if you get a chance, check out Burt Williams if you don't mind. In fact, watch the whole clip. It's about 28 minutes, but you're going to thank, not me, you're going to thank yourself. It's a worthy investment, and I think you really get a little bit of taste of the art at that time, but you also get a taste of what the struggle is at that time. And that was something that I thought was important. Just the idea that it didn't have sound. How many of you actually watch films, silent films? Just think about the intensity and the amount of focus has to happen while you're watching it, but also for the actor that's trying to portray everything that's going on in the scene with no audio. Amazing. So big ups to Flip Wilson. Big ups to Mr. Burt Williams. Of course, never met Burt Williams, but I will say this. I really appreciate the amount of energy that those older outliers as entertainers had looking out for us. Okay, brothers and sisters. So listen, I want you to have a wonderful weekend. Take care of yourself. Get some rest. Don't be out there too bad. And if it's Allah's will, I'll see you tomorrow. But again, I thank you and I appreciate your time and your patience. I'm Preacher Moss. This is a shout out show. Inshallah, I will see you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your shout out show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next shout out show. A simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarif Attar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifattar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.